Kia ora and buenas tardes, everybody from Panama City, Panama. Today is day 138 of self-imposed isolation / quarantine, day 131 of government-imposed quarantine here in Panama City. It's a rather long time, isn't it? Feeling quite a lot happier this week because things are moving on. Caesar and I are here in Panama. We're from New Zealand to try and immigrate to Panama. We'd long wanted to do this because we're surfers and we want to come and surf warm water, and we want to escape, to be fair, New Zealand's winter. And I'm looking on the bright side of my current situation here. I'm actually quite pleased to not be in the freezing cold winter of New Zealand right now, so you know, there's something positive. Except en route between New Zealand and Panama, we stopped in Texas for a week or so to see family, and we dropped off a bunch of luggage because we thought we were coming back to Panama just for 3 weeks to do a quick tour of the country, and then we had all our documentation to file our application for our visa, and then we were going to go back to Texas and await the government's response to that application. Would they let us stay or not? But then coronavirus hit. I mean, I did not plan on a global pandemic during the middle of us trying to immigrate from New Zealand to Panama, but here we are. So the quarantine restrictions in Panama and Panama Oeste are still the same. I do think that they may be actually extending those restrictions to other parts of the country now. I cannot name them because I'm not totally sure. Because I haven't been watching the news every night at the moment. I'm trying to remain quite positive, and so avoiding the news and trying to avoid most social media apart from my little happy cat pictures on Twitter, my little Twitter bubble. Although that's been a bit, you know, not as nice as it could be lately, but anyway. Okay, so the situation here regarding quarantine, day 131, I'm just going to keep repeating that because it's actually quite astounding. It's quite a feat of achievement. I feel like, you know, do I get a gold star when they let me up? Because damn it, I think we should, you know, some acknowledgement of the enormous sacrifice that the people of this country have made to try and slow the spread of this virus. Sadly, it's not actually working that well though. The virus is spreading. We're getting between 700 and 1100 or so new cases a day. So the situation is still this: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, women are allowed to leave the house 1 hour plus half an hour each side travelled time. So 2 hours a day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The time at which you're allowed to leave is determined by the last digit of your ID. In our case, passports, or actually I think maybe our new temporary IDs. Men are allowed to leave the house, same conditions, Tuesday, Thursday. So the genders are supposed to be separate. So I'm allowed to leave the house for 6 hours a week. When I go, I am only supposed to go to the supermarket or the pharmacy. I am literally not allowed to take a walk in the park, which is why I say New Zealand's 7-week lockdown that you guys are crowing about, literally from my point of view, looks like literally a walk in the park, because you could actually literally go for a walk in the park. So we have some good news this week. As I said a couple of weeks ago, we had managed to file our visa while in quarantine. Our lawyer worked on that for us. She's fantastic. She did the best job. Now we're looking at, with our lawyer's advice and doing it by the book, by the rules, because, you know, the police here have the guns, so I'm not doing anything that's not with the rules. We're looking at moving out of the city and taking a permanent home, more permanent, 6-month lease, down in Coronado by the beach where there's surf, because that's what we're here for. We're here to surf. I think we found a house. We have bought a car, so massive changes this week. Very exciting, quite stressful though. And we're looking at moving next week, so that's going to be good. It's going to be lovely to get out of an apartment in a city and into a house with a garden and have some nature, and maybe I'll see another hummingbird. I still can't wait for, you know, I mean, I know this is not forever and this pandemic will pass, and when it does, I'm still just really excited to be in this beautiful country, to see the mountains and the forests and the waterfalls and the beaches and all the flora and fauna. When I did my degree, my major was biology, but it was pretty much all botany. So trees are my thing. I do actually literally hug them from time to time. Looking forward to hugging some trees. Here I'm sitting on my balcony looking at our lovely view of the ocean, which is lovely, but damn it, can't see a tree. Not a tree in sight. Looking forward to getting to know some trees again. Okay. So, I mean, so far I feel like, I mean, I've had a little bit to do with other people, socially distanced, of course, like the concierge here in the building, our lawyer. There's a really lovely young woman, her name's Sujixa. She's been doing concierge services for us. She's helped us out with organising our Panamanian driver's licenses, which sadly is excessively difficult. Helped us out with going to immigration, etc. And she's just been so lovely, helping us with advice and information. All of the Panamanian people I've come across so far are just super helpful and really friendly and really nice. And they come across as like totally genuine. And it's kind of similar in a way to Kiwis. Like, I notice the cultural differences between New Zealand and the United States. And people in the United States, I mean, they're different. Here in Panama, I feel the way people are just feels like it's a little closer to the way people are in New Zealand. There's that slight, I won't say reserve, but just a little bit of formality in the way people are with you here, which I really like too, because it's not effusive and too much. So yeah, really looking forward to, I mean, making some friends eventually when we can, and getting out to know people and surfing. And I see that the light is at the end of the tunnel and it's going to happen. So the number of cases in Panama continues to be disturbingly high, but the number of people in ICU has actually fallen a little. The number of people in hospital seems to be kind of hovering about the 1,100 to 1,200 in total. The percentage of positive cases is still worryingly high, but for over the last 11 or 12 days, I think 9 or 10 of those days has been below the 14-day average. Okay, that sounds kind of technical, but that's what I do. I analyze numbers and stuff. So it looks like, in layman's terms, it looks like we might just have passed the peak of this, at least the first biggest wave, and things may actually start to improve from here on. Okay, I deleted last week's video because of the title, and this is the last time I'm going to mention this issue in my videos, but I do have a couple of other things to add. The title of my last video was Team of 6 Million, and I deleted it because I found out something about one of the admins of that group that was particularly counter to my views of New Zealand's position and how they're managing things, and I didn't want to have anything to do with them, so I deleted that video and anything I had to do with them. I felt like it had been misrepresented to us, and I wasn't happy about that, so that's why I did that. So that video's gone, so this is kind of replacing it. So the situation in New Zealand now is kind of resolved. The government's decided that returning New Zealanders, if they go to return permanently, and they're defining that as staying over 90 days, 3 months, that seems fairly legit, they won't be charged for their quarantine, and that's a huge relief to many of us, I'm sure. For those of us returning just to visit family and then going back to our overseas homes, we will be charged for quarantine. And for anyone who is present in New Zealand at the time the law is passed, if they leave at that stage, upon return, they too will be charged for quarantine. I understand the logic, and it seems like a reasonable compromise, and there is room for compassionate grounds for exemption from that. So that seems like a fair workaround and a compromise. But I'm still incredibly salty with my country right now. Like, I've gone from being deeply upset, almost traumatized, and feeling betrayed. And I mean those words, like, that's how I felt. I am not over dramatizing this reaction. That it was really horrible what New Zealand tried to do to us. to now I'm just angry, pissed off, and feeling quite cold actually. New Zealand has a socialised healthcare system, and you pay taxes, and then when you need health services, you get those services and you don't get a bill. That's how our system works. Now, here's a really good point. If you want to start talking about who pays the tax and who gets the benefits, you're starting to create an us versus them situation, and you know that works both ways, New Zealand. Those of us who are overseas, no matter how long we've been overseas, if we're returning home and we're returning home to stay, we will then be paying tax. And you know, the biggest portion of the government's spend to fight COVID has been the wage subsidy, over $12 billion. It absolutely dwarfs the proposed spend for this whole year of quarantine by more than 10 times. Those of us who return to stay in New Zealand will be paying tax, and some of that tax will be paying off a debt for something that we did not incur, that we received no benefit from. Is that fair? So you see, we can play this both ways, and it's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Because that's not how our healthcare system is funded, and it's not how it's supposed to work. We tried some form of user pays back in the 90s. It was the national government again that did that, and New Zealanders eventually roundly rejected it. We didn't want it. We want it to be universally accessible, free at point of use. It's a much better system than what we see overseas in the likes of the United States with an insurance-based system, and if you don't have the money, you can't access. So in New Zealand, we have equal access to healthcare. So I think it wasn't so much the suggestion of the charging bothered me, it was the conversation around it, the mean, nasty, horrible things that were said. I was told, we don't want you back. I saw other Kiwis being told, hope your plane gets shot down by a Russian jet on your way home. We've been called plague-ridden hordes. It's not okay. My citizenship remains. My passport did not spontaneously self-combust when I left the country. And the fact that many of us find ourselves overseas during a global pandemic should elicit some compassion in our family back home. I mean, I know my family personally have compassion. I'm talking about, you know, the wider social context here. We had it after the Christchurch terrorist attack. We all bloody held hands and sang Kumbaya after that. Where's the bloody looking after your fellow countrymen who finds themselves in a COVID hotspot now? Gone. Totally unimpressed. I know you're going to say, oh, it's only a few, most of us want you home, blah. Yeah, that may be the case, but there's a hell of a lot who are either silent. I see that a lot on Twitter. A lot of the people I respect, very, very few of them have made any kind of public comment about this. They're all just in your happy little New Zealand bubble, which is great for you guys. One more thing. Another comment I've seen that I'm going to counter is this idea that you did the hard yards to keep New Zealand safe. That is true. You had 7 weeks of lockdown. I mean, if we want to make it a competition, I'm winning there, but it's not a competition. You did 7 weeks, you made the country safe from COVID. You've got an elimination strategy. I'm stoked. Best strategy ever. It doesn't mean you get to keep the country to yourselves though. I'm still a New Zealand citizen, and I have, you don't want to hear it, but I've got every right to return home. And I don't think we should have an extra tax for doing so. That's not fair. So luckily, if I go home to stay, I won't. And I think that's a good compromise. I mean, I can hold a grudge, and I'm not going to lie, I'm going to hold this grudge for a while. The way we've been treated in the last couple of weeks is deeply upsetting. I just don't think I'm going to quickly and easily forget it. Really disappointed. That creating us versus them, using fear of something to stoke division in order to try and generate votes, is what Trump does. But here we see the National Party in New Zealand trying to do it, and it's really ugly, people. And it should have been roundly rejected by New Zealanders en masse, but it absolutely wasn't. It was a very, very popular stance, wasn't it? Unimpressed, New Zealand, very unimpressed. Anyway, should be getting an answer. Oh yeah, latest news, like we got just an hour ago, our lawyer says that our visa application is proceeding at warp speed. It's got like six steps. We're into up to step like 4 or 5. Yay! We might actually have an answer on that in a couple of weeks. And considering how I feel about New Zealand right now, I'm darn well hoping Panama accept us with open arms, and if they do, this is where I'm staying for the foreseeable future anyway. I mean, I do want to surf the Caribbean, that's for sure. So when I can get out there and do it, I'm going to do it. Okay, this is a rather long video, quite a lot of ranting. I do promise I shall not rant on that particular subject again. That's it from me on that subject. Moving on. Next week's video, I hope to give you extremely good news of a home with a garden and hopefully a pool, and move out of the city if we can manage to do it all legit. That's it from me this week. Muchas gracias, amigos and familia, for watching my videos. I'll see you next week. Ciao.